Thanks for choosing the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more NBA news. Now, Steph Curry, as he's looking for a new shoe deal, I've been thinking why Nike makes the most sense for Steph Curry. Now, as one of the top shooting guards of all time, one of the top players of all time, most people would have him in their top 10 to 15 right now, even though he's still playing. I think the shoe deal is a big deal for a couple of reasons. For one of the reasons, it's just for legacy wise, because he's been with Under Armour so long and he's been under the radar. Those shoes have been getting, have negative feedback, negative stigma with them. People don't like the design of those shoes. And not that you need a great shoe to be a great player, but some of the great players before him, especially shooting guards, have had iconic shoes. Now, when you think about Michael Jordan, he has a whole brand of shoes, and that's still famous today. Even now, he's retired in the early 2000s, so over 20 plus years later, the shoe is still falling off the shelves, and people are still, you know, going out to the stores getting those shoes, and it's probably the number one shoe still. Which he started off with Nike and branded off into his own venture with Jordan Brand, which is a classic brand. You think about a Kobe Bryant who started off with Adidas and had the weird like space shoe, but then he eventually went to Nike and had the classic Mamba shoes. And those shoes are still great today, even though he's retired over, I think 10 plus years ago. So that shows you another sign. Dwayne Wade doesn't have a shoe, but James Harden does. It's not really considered classic. But there are a lot of other players with classic shoes, like the Kevin Durant shoe. Kyrie, when he was with Nike, had his shoe. The John Morant shoe is kind of popular right now. So Nike creates these shoes for players, and they're iconic. The kids just go get them off the shelves. Other brands are not able to accomplish that as much. You're not seeing people go to get Adidas or Under Armour or even the shoe brand that Klay Thompson was signed with, or especially not Reebok, unless it's the old classic Allen Iverson shoe, which he had a classic shoe as well, similar to what Patrick Ewing had. Penny Hardaway had a classic shoe with Nike as well. I think he just had one, but um, that shoe means a lot as far as legacy goes, because you're thinking about players that come along, 20 or 30 years after you play. Will they still be wearing your shoe? And then that keeps your name going. The record books keep your name going as well, but a lot of time we see names in the record books from the 60s. We don't know who these players are. We just know of them, but we don't have anything to go with that or attach to it. And that shoe is one of the biggest things that you can attach to. And right now, Steph Curry doesn't have that with the Under Armour shoe. The Under Armour shoe is seen as one of the most grotesque shoes that they can say that exists. Nobody's out wearing those except for maybe some kids here and there. But middle age, adults are not wearing those. Most teenagers are not wearing those shoes. So that is, I think, big for his legacy as far as that goes. Because I know if he has a shoe with Nike, they're gonna make a classic shoe that looks great, and that will put him up to the next stratosphere. Because a part of Jordan's legacy is not only his championships and what he was able to do statistically, but it's the shoe. Because most players now weren't old enough to watch Jordan play. They were born in 2000 and beyond. Now the younger players, they didn't see him play. They only know what their parents told them or what their big brothers told them and things like that. But that shoe keeps his name alive, because you have to know, when you're wearing Jordan, whether you're wearing it or not, it's Jordan. It's still attached to him. You still see the Jumpman logo that's famous for him. And maybe Steph will have a logo as well. The logo is everything in Jordan's legacy. It creates everything. I mean, Shaq had a logo that's not as famous as Jordan's, but Jordan was able to do it because he leveraged everything he had with Nike, and Nike was a great promoter. And Nike's always going to be seen in one of the highest lights when it comes to athleticism and athletes and marketing and brands, because they just put a lot into their research and development. So I think it makes the greatest sense for Steph. Of course, like I said before, it's not required that you have an amazing shoe, because we know Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Magic and Bird, they really didn't have shoes back then. But any player that's after 19, you know, 85 or 1990, they were attached to some kind of iconic shoe. whether they had one shoe that they wore all the time or they had a shoe that was established just for them. So it is very imperative that he does, especially later in his career, because he needs to think about after retirement now, because he probably has less than 5 years left. But with his game, he probably can play longer because he's not a high flyer or he doesn't rely on athleticism as much. So he can probably play longer than most players, but he's getting up there in age. So the next move he makes has to be it's a career changing move, and I think this shoe thing is a big part of that because KD has an iconic shoe as well, and most would consider him in the top 15, even though he's still playing. And most people would there was a debate, would you pick Steph Curry or Kevin Durant? Because we know Kevin Durant, without Steph Curry, hasn't been able to get it done, but Steph Curry without Durant has gotten it done. But Durant, is kind of undeniable as far as his stats goes and his ability, being so tall and being able to be so agile and being able to play like a smaller player, be able to average 30 points and be the youngest scoring champion ever. I'm not sure if he still has that one or not, but at the time he did. And his time with Russ and OKC and what they were able to do. And I believe if they played a couple of more years together, they would have eventually won a championship. But unfortunately, we never got to see that happen. But that was some of the greatest moments in basketball history when they played together. So that's just a debate that most people would have, or would you rather have? But of course, Steph Curry 6'3" and Kevin Durant is listed somewhere around 6'10". So most people probably would pick Kevin Durant, but Steph Curry is such a great shooter and such a great asset, and it's been, for the most part, with the exception of early his career, been very durable. Um, so it's just that's a very tough debate that I'll probably have to figure out one day. But for now, um, I'll leave it to the side. But tell me what your thoughts about Steph Curry and what he should do as far as a shoe deal going forward, and who has the best deal for him, you think, going forward. And until next time, I'll see you next time.